Okay, here is your Unit 4 Equations Study Guide. Question 1. Complete the process of solving the equation. Fill in the missing term on each side. Simplify any fractions. So we have 2x plus 6 equals 10. Remember, to solve an equation, we use inverse operations. So in our first step, it tells us that we'll subtract 6 from both sides. So when I do that, a positive 6 and a negative 6, that cancels out, that becomes 0. And then on the right side of the equation, 10 minus 6 equals 4. So in the first space, I would fill in a 4. Steps 2 says divide both sides by 2. So we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1t, which is the same thing as a plain old t there. And then 4 divided by 2 equals 2. So the two digits that need to be in there are a 4 and a 2. Okay, question 2, a little more complicated here. We're going to complete the process of solving the equation. We're filling in the missing term and simplifying any fractions. Okay, so notice on the left side of the equation I have the letter D there twice. It's only once on the right side. So I'm going to first combine like terms on the left side of the equation. Our like terms are negative 11D, and I take the sign with it, negative 18D. So negative 11D minus 18D, when I combine that, I get negative 29D. So that's going to go in the first slot there, negative 29D. Our next step says to subtract 5D from both sides. I want to get all of our variables together on the left side of the equation. So we're going to subtract 5D, subtract 5D. So I'm going to go negative 29D minus 5D. Negative 29 minus 5 is negative 34D. Okay, so step 2 is done. Now I'm going to add 12 to both sides. So add 12, add 12. Here, negative 12 plus 12, that brings us with just negative 34D on the left. And negative 12 plus 12, oh, interesting, that becomes 0. So that is 0. And then my final step is to divide both sides by negative 34. So divide by negative 34, divide by negative 34, and 0 divided by negative 34 is 0. So my final answer is 0. So if I'm looking back at these boxes, I should have negative 29D in there, negative 34D in there, 0, and 0. Okay, another example where we have variables on both sides of the equal sign. Okay, so my first step, I'd want to get my letters together, and I can do this either way. I can subtract 4D on both sides of the equal sign, or I can subtract 6Y on both sides of the equal sign. I like to move the smaller value over with the larger value. Of course, that's your style choice, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go minus 4y to eliminate that on the left, and minus 4y over here. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other to keep the balance. On the left side, then, I'm left with 10. And on the right side, I have negative 10, and then 6y minus 4y is a positive 2y. So I'm going to rewrite the problem like that. Okay, moving on. Now I want to, remember, I'm going to isolate the variable. So the next step would be to add 10. Since I have a minus 10 here, my variable's here. I'm going to add 10 to both sides of the equal sign. Okay, so that becomes 0. On the left, 10 plus 10, that is 20. And I bring this 2y down right here. And then my final step, I'm going to undo any multiplication or division. 2 and y, that's an invisible multiplication sign. So we'll divide both sides by 2 to get y by itself. And then 20 divided by 2 is 10. Okay, so you could have attacked it a different way and started by subtracting 6y on both sides. Ultimately, you should get 10 as your answer. Okay, here we go again. We have variables on both sides. We want to get our letters together. And since there's, 2 terms over here, I want to keep a balance. I'm going to start on this side and add 7s to both sides. Okay, so that's gone. -8 plus 7 is -1s or negative s. And then I have 10 on the right side. This indicates multiplication. So the inverse of multiplication is division. So I divide both sides by -1. And that leaves me with s equals -10. Okay, we have a word problem here, so let's carefully kind of dissect the word problem here and see what's going on. Anne and Kim are drinking milkshakes. Anne starts with 24 ounces of milk, that's what she's beginning with, and she drinks 2 ounces a minute. So that 24 is going to go down 2 ounces every minute. Kim is going to start with a 36 ounces of a milkshake. So she starts with 36 ounces, but she's drinking at a faster rate, 5 ounces per minute. So starting with more, but drinking a lot more at a faster rate. After 2 minutes, who will have more milkshake left? Okay, so Anne is going to start with 24 ounces. Let's say we wanted to know after 2 minutes. Well, after 1 minute, she would be down 2 ounces. And then after 2 minutes, so that's down to 22. And then after another minute, she'd be down another 2 ounces. So she'd be at 20 ounces after 2 minutes. And then Kim, looks like Kim is starting with 36 ounces. And after 1 minute, she's down 5 ounces. She drinks 5 ounces. So she's at 31. And then after her second minute, we're subtracting another 5 ounces. And so let's see, I'm going to borrow. That's going to be 26 ounces. Yeah, so that's after 2 minutes. So Anne is at 20 ounces and Kim is at 26 ounces. So it's asking, we could continue that pattern and work that way, or we could write an equation to show how they will have the same amount. So one side equal to the other. So going back to Anne, she starts with 24 ounces. That's her starting rate, or starting amount. And then she drinks 2 ounces. So as she drinks, it's decreasing 2 ounces every minute. That's where we can put our variable. I'm going to use m for minute. You could use x or whatever you want. So this is Anne. She starts with 2 ounces and then drinks 2 ounces every minute. And then Kim starts with 36, and then she's reducing hers by 5 ounces every minute. So this could be an equation that we could use for that. And then we're going to solve the equation to show when they have the same amount. Okay, so let's solve this equation. So I'm going to rewrite it down here. 24 minus 2m equals 36 minus 5m. Okay, so let's get our letters together first. So I'm going to add 5m. Okay, so on the left here I have 24 plus 3m equals 36, because negative 2 plus 5 is 3m. And then we're going to continue to use our skills here using inverse operations. Okay, so that leaves me with 3m equals 12. And then my final step, divide by 3, divide by 3. So at the 4-minute mark, they would have the same amount of milkshake. Okay, how many solutions does this equation have? So let me work through it and solve it here. I'm going to add 6r, get our variables together first. Oh, this is interesting. Minus 6r plus 6r is 0 equals negative 2. I have no variable. Does 0 equal negative 2? No, this is a false statement. And if you remember, a false statement means no solution. This would be an example of no solution because our variable's eliminated, or we get a false statement. Okay, last one. We want to get our letters together first. I like to move the smaller letter over to join the bigger letter. So let's see, I get 3 on the left. So 2z minus z is 1z. Oh, and then I can just make that invisible, just plain old z. Okay, so that's just z, because 1z is the same thing as just z. And then we're going to add 5 to both sides. I get 8 equals 1z, or just z. So if I actually get one answer for this. So if I get one answer, then this is an example of one solution.